Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. In today's video, we're diving into Arabian Nights, a world of genies, treasures, and clever storytelling that has influenced literature and movies worldwide. Let's uncover the magic together. Every night, a woman told a story. Every morning, she expected to die. These stories were not written for entertainment. They were told to survive. Arabian Nights, the stories that shaped how the world dreams. A world history story by the perfect professor. Part 1. Stories told to survive death. Every night, a woman told a story. And every morning, she was still alive. This is not a metaphor. This is the origin of Arabian Nights. A kingdom built on fear. Long ago, a powerful king ruled with absolute authority. Betrayed once, he chose revenge as policy. Each night, he married a woman. Each morning, she was executed. Love became temporary. Trust became impossible. Power ruled by terror. One woman changed everything. Then came Scheherazade. She did not challenge the king with weapons. She challenged him with imagination. On her wedding night, she began a story. But she did not finish it. The most dangerous weapon, curiosity. At dawn, the king hesitated. He wanted to know what happened next. So he spared her for one more night. The next night, she continued. And again, stopped before the end. Curiosity defeated cruelty. One night became two. Two became many. Why these stories were different? Scheherazade's tales were not simple fantasies. They were layered. Kings learned humility. Tyrants faced consequences. Clever minds outwitted brute force. Each story reflected the king himself. Without accusation, without rebellion, only reflection. Storytelling as survival. This was not entertainment. It was strategy. Every tale delayed death. Every metaphor reshaped power. Scheherazade understood something ancient and profound. Stories can reach where commands cannot. A nightly education of power. Night after night, the king listened. He heard of just rulers, of foolish tyrants, of mercy rewarded, of cruelty punished. Slowly, the stories changed him. Not suddenly, gradually. Stories do not conquer. They transform. Why Arabian Nights is not just fiction. These tales traveled across deserts, across empires, across centuries. They absorbed Persian imagination, Indian wisdom, Arab poetry. Arabian Nights became a cultural mirror of the Islamic world, a world of trade, danger, desire, faith, magic, and survival. Dreams as memory. In a largely oral culture, stories carried values. They taught how to rule, how to survive, how to think. Arabian Nights preserved psychology, not facts. And psychology lasts longer than dates. Professor's reflection. Stories are softer than swords, sharper than law. Scheherazade did not overthrow a king. She changed him. That is more difficult. Arabian Nights reminds us that imagination has always been humanity's quiet weapon, especially when power listens only in the dark. Part 2. Magic, merchants, and the world beyond the desert. The magic of Arabian Nights did not come from nowhere. It traveled on camelbacks, through markets where languages mixed and ideas collided. Why Arabian Nights feels bigger than Arabia. Arabian Nights is not purely Arab. It is global imagination stitched together. Persian myths, Indian wisdom tales, Arab poetry, African folklore. These stories met in trading cities and fused. Trade routes were not just economic highways. They were story highways. Merchants as storytellers. Merchants were the internet of the medieval world. They carried spices, silk, gold, and stories. At night, around fires and inns, tales were exchanged like currency. A good story traveled farther than goods, and it survived longer. Why magic appears everywhere. Flying carpets, genies, enchanted islands, hidden cities. These were not childish fantasies. They were metaphors for a world that felt unpredictable. When nature is dangerous, imagination becomes explanation. Magic made chaos understandable. The genie is not a fairy tale. The genie is a warning. Powerful, unpredictable, bound by rules. Genies grant wishes, but punish greed. They represent power without wisdom, a common fear in empires built on ambition. Why wealth and danger share the same space. Arabian Nights is obsessed with riches, treasure chests, hidden gold, lavish palaces. But wealth is always paired with risk. Fortune arrives suddenly and disappears just as fast. This reflects merchant reality. Trade could make you rich. One mistake could ruin you. Cities that feel like dreams. Baghdad,
Basra,
Cairo. These cities appear almost unreal in the stories. Bustling markets, music at night, scholars and thieves side by side. They were crossroads of civilization, where knowledge felt magical because it was rare elsewhere. Women as voices of intelligence. Arabian Nights gives women power through wit. Scheherazade survives through intelligence. Female characters outthink kings and demons. This was radical. Strength was not physical. It was mental. The stories quietly challenged assumptions about power. Reality disguised as fantasy. Arabian Nights used fantasy to speak safely. Criticism wrapped in magic travels unnoticed. Kings could hear lessons without feeling attacked. This made storytelling a tool of survival and reform. Why these stories spread so easily? They were
short,
memorable, adaptable. Each storyteller changed details. The core remained. Arabian Nights was not fixed. It evolved like dreams. Professor's reflection. Trade did not just move goods. Trade moved ideas, fears, and desires. Arabian Nights is proof that imagination thrives where cultures meet. The desert was not empty. It was connected. Part 3, Sinbad, Aladdin, and the Psychology of Adventure. Arabian Nights is filled with danger. Not quiet danger.
spectaculaire danger.
Storms, monsters, curses, sudden wealth, sudden ruin. These stories were not written to make people comfortable. They were written to make people dream of escape. Why adventure dominates Arabian Nights? Life in the medieval world was narrow. You were born into a place. You worked where you were born. You died there. Adventure stories broke that cage. They whispered a forbidden idea. You can leave. Sinbad, the merchant who refused to stay still. Sinbad is not a warrior. He is not a king. He is a merchant. This matters. Sinbad survives by curiosity, risk, adaptability. He sails into the unknown again and again, not because he must, but because he chooses to. Sinbad represents the trader's dream. Risk everything. Lose everything. Gain more than before. Failure is temporary. Movement is power. Why the sea is always terrifying. Arabian cultures were rooted in desert life. The sea was the opposite. Unstable, unpredictable, limitless. In stories, the sea becomes a character. It punishes arrogance, rewards patience, destroys certainty. The sea is freedom but never safety. Aladdin, power without preparation. Aladdin begins as nothing.
Poor,
Unimportant, invisible. Then power arrives suddenly. A genie.
instant wealth, instant influence.
Arabian Nights asks a dangerous question. What happens when power reaches someone unready? Aladdin nearly destroys himself. Because power magnifies character. It does not create it. Why wishes always go wrong. Genies are literal wish machines. Yet wishes almost always backfire.
Why?
Because desire is impulsive. Arabian Nights warns. Wanting without wisdom is dangerous. Speed without thought leads to disaster. This was a lesson for rulers as much as listeners. Adventure as moral testing. Every journey in Arabian Nights is a test. Not of strength, but of judgment. The foolish gain riches and lose them. The clever escape danger. The greedy suffer consequences. Adventure reveals who you truly are. Why these heroes are not perfect. Arabian Nights does not worship heroes. Its protagonists lie. They cheat. They panic. They learn slowly. This makes them human. And humanity is the real subject of these stories. Escape is the real fantasy. Magic is decoration. Escape is the core. Arabian Nights tells listeners, you're not trapped forever. The world is larger than your fear. Risk can transform life. This is why the stories endured. They offered hope without certainty. Professor's reflection. Adventure is a rebellion. In a world where most people could not change their fate, stories became rehearsal for freedom. Arabian Nights trained the imagination to move, even when the body could not. That training shaped how humanity dreams to this day. Part 4. Desire, Power, and the Lessons Hidden in Fantasy. Arabian Nights is often mistaken for innocent fantasy. It is not. It is filled with desire, temptation, excess, and consequence. Because these stories were never meant for children, they were meant for powerful adults. Desire as the engine of every story. Almost every tale begins with desire. The desire for wealth,
love,
power, revenge, immortality. Arabian Nights does not condemn desire. It examines what happens when desire is unchecked. Desire moves the plot. Judgment decides the ending. Why pleasure and danger always appear together. In Arabian Nights, pleasure is never safe. Palaces hide betrayal.
beauty conceale danger.
Luxury attracts enemies. This reflects court life. In royal courts, pleasure and risk were inseparable. The stories warned rulers gently. Your comfort can destroy you. Sex, power, and control. Arabian Nights does not avoid sexuality, but it treats sex as political. Marriage creates alliances. Desire creates vulnerability. Jealousy fuels violence. The opening story itself begins with betrayal. Sex is not romance. It is consequence. Why kings are often fools. Many rulers in Arabian Nights are powerful but unwise. They act impulsively. They punish without thought. They trust the wrong people. These stories criticize power safely. No king is accused directly. Instead, fictional kings suffer the lesson. Storytelling as political advice. Arabian Nights functioned as a mirror. Rulers listening at night heard themselves reflected. A cruel king hears about cruel kings who fall. A greedy ruler hears about greed punished. Advice delivered as fantasy cannot be punished. This is how truth survives under authority. Women and intelligence. Women in Arabian Nights often survive through wit. They manipulate situations. They anticipate danger. They use language as defense. This challenges the idea that power is physical. The stories quietly argue. Intelligence outlasts force. Why moral lessons are never simple. Arabian Nights avoids simple morality. Good people suffer. Bad people sometimes win, temporarily. This reflects reality. The stories prepare listeners for complexity, not justice. Wisdom is knowing when to act, not expecting fairness. Fantasy as safe space for truth. Fantasy allowed forbidden discussions. Tyranny, desire,
injustice,
hypocrisy. Wrapped in magic, truth became invisible to censorship. Arabian Nights is not escapism. It is camouflage. Why these lessons traveled so far? Every society struggles with power, desire, control. Arabian Nights speaks to these universally. That is why Europe embraced it. That is why Asia recognized itself in it. That is why it still resonates. Professor's reflection. Fantasy is the oldest political language. Before freedom of speech, there was storytelling. Arabian Nights proves that imagination is not an escape from reality. It is how reality survives oppression. Part 5. From the Desert to the World. Arabian Nights did not remain Arabian. It escaped. And once it did, the world's imagination was never the same again. How the stories left the desert. For centuries, Arabian Nights lived orally. Told at night, changed by storytellers, adapted to audience. Then it was written down, and later, translated. Translation is not copying. It is transformation. When Europe discovered Arabian Nights, when European readers first encountered Arabian Nights, it felt alien. Magic felt excessive. Desire felt open. Morality felt unfamiliar. And that is exactly why it fascinated them. Europe had stories, but it did not have this kind of dreaming. Exoticism becomes obsession. Arabian Nights introduced Europe to endless nights, talking animals, clever tricksters, dangerous beauty. It shattered rigid storytelling structures. Stories no longer needed realism. They needed possibility. Fantasy was reborn. Orientalism, admiration, and misunderstanding. Europe admired the stories, but often misunderstood the culture. Arabian Nights became fantasy without context. The East was romanticized, mysterious, sensual, dangerous. This created stereotypes, but it also created influence. Imagination spread faster than accuracy. How these stories reshaped literature. Arabian Nights changed how stories worked. It introduced stories within stories, endless narrative loops, unreliable narrators. Modern storytelling owes it a debt. From fantasy novels to films, the structure began here. White children's stories changed forever. Genies, wishes, magical journeys. These ideas became global childhood imagination, but their origins were adult. Arabian Nights was later softened, but its core remained. Dreams without borders, a global mirror. As the stories traveled, cultures reshaped them. Europe saw fantasy. Asia saw familiarity. The modern world saw spectacle. Arabian Nights became universal by being adaptable. Why the stories survived translation. Facts die when translated poorly. Stories survive because emotion crosses language easily.
Fear.
Desire.
Hope.
Arabian Nights survived because it spoke emotionally. The price of global fame. Something was lost. Depth faded. Context thinned.
Politics softened.
But survival required compromise. Better to be remembered imperfectly than forgotten entirely. Professor's reflection. Stories travel better than truth. Arabian Nights prove something profound. Truth needs protection. Stories need movement. When stories move, cultures connect, even imperfectly. Part 6. Why Arabian Nights still shapes our dreams. Arabian Nights never truly ended. It simply changed form. The setting shifted. The costumes changed. The magic adapted. But the dream remained. Why we still tell stories at night. Night changes the human mind. Darkness softens certainty. Silence amplifies imagination. Fear becomes intimate. Arabian Nights understood this instinctively. Stories told at night are not distractions. They are companions. They guard us against the quiet. Modern fantasy is a descendant of the desert. Every genie granting wishes, every cursed treasure, every journey into the unknown. They trace back to Arabian Nights. Modern fantasy did not invent magic. It inherited it. And with it, the same warning. Power without wisdom destroys its owner. Why we need magic even in a scientific world. Science explains how the world works. Stories explain how it feels. Arabian Nights filled the emotional gaps. Fear of chaos. Desire for justice.
Hope for escape.
Magic gave shape to emotions that logic could not. That need has not disappeared. The psychological genius of Scheherazade. Scheherazade did not argue. She did not resist. She engaged. She understood something timeless. People rarely change through force. They change through reflection. Arabian Nights teaches persuasion, not rebellion. Why these stories feel timeless. Arabian Nights avoids specific dates. It avoids fixed places. It floats. This makes it reusable. Every generation sees itself inside the stories. Every culture finds a mirror. Timelessness was intentional. Dreams as cultural memory. Long before books were common, Stories preserve psychology. They remembered what power does to people, how desire misleads, why cleverness survives. Arabian Nights carried this memory across centuries. It taught humanity how to feel wisely, why these stories refused to die. Empires fell, languages changed, beliefs evolved, yet Arabian Nights remained, because it speaks to the part of the mind that logic never fully reaches. The dreaming mind. The final truth about Arabian Nights. Arabian Nights is not about magic. It is about survival. Surviving power. Surviving desire. Surviving fear. It teaches that stories are tools, not for escape, but for endurance. Final reflection. When stories become shelter. When the world is dangerous, humans do not reach for weapons first. They reach for stories. Arabian Nights proves that imagination has always been humanity's quiet refuge, a place where wisdom hides behind wonder. Closing words from the perfect professor. Civilizations rise and fall. Stories remain, because stories do not rule lands. They rule hearts, and hearts remember longer than history. Lessons from the past. Stories for the present. Before we end, I have a question for you. Which story from Arabian Nights is your favorite? Aladdin, Ali Baba, or something else? And why? Comment below. We've come to the end of our journey into Arabian Nights. Thank you so much for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories and history videos. See you again in the next one. Take care.